What's up, everyone? This is Noah Dalzell, and I'm here with Bobby Manning. The Celtics just defeated the Golden State Warriors 125-85, 40-point blowout victory. This one was pretty much over from the beginning. Warriors didn't have much of a fight today, but still a really good, resounding bounce-back win for a team that really desperately needed one. What were your main takeaways from this one?
Some good energy early, and then ball movement flowed, 70% assist rate in this one, guys getting involved across the board, and they extended that lead as each quarter went on, and pretty much, like you said, took control of this game. About halftime, maybe just a little bit after, and I love the tone they set in the first quarter by repeating those rotations we saw from Saturday. Jaylen Brown able to play 8-9 minutes into that first quarter. Jason Tatum comes out but comes back for another stint. So you get both of them staggered in that first quarter and able to build rhythm. Jaylen shoots 8 for 14. Jason carries forward a good game after that as well. And both just seem satisfied with that middle ground, the rotation. Obviously, Jason in that situation can't play the full first that's been getting him going to the degree it has. Obviously, Jaylen can't have the full first quarters that he's had in the past. But to find a middle ground, to have them both involved and comfortable, I think that's the way you go.
Yeah, and here's what they had to say after the game about the new sub pattern.
Games you got to play a little deeper in the first quarter. I know there's been an adjustment for you this. You had those rotations. I feel like it helped a little bit, mixing those up a little bit.
Yeah, you could say that. I feel like I'm usually the one that set the tone for the team. So sometimes not being out there. We kind of have a sluggish start. I feel like at different times in my career, that's been me to help negate that. But different year, things get switching up, and things get switched up, and you just got to be all right with that. I don't really complain or anything. I just try to come out and be the best version of myself.
Yeah, it's something me and Joe talk about. Like, for most of the season, I was playing the whole first quarter, in the third, and then we just kind of had a talk of, things changed, dynamics changed. KP came back. What's best for our team, and maybe me starting the fourth quarter or whatever. And all of us, we just got to be open-minded, and it can fluctuate throughout the season. And knowing that I'm gonna play 34, 35 minutes, it all ends up the same. Just, patterns change, but you just got to be open-minded to that.
Let's talk a little bit about that being an adjustment for him. He used to play those full first quarter stretches. That communication piece, with him talking about that going into games. What's that like? Just kind of establishing, all right, this is what I'm going to be in this one. That sort of thing.
You talk about it before a stretch or before a game or whatever. Most of my career I would always come out 6 minutes, and so it was new to me to play the whole first and third quarter. It takes some getting used to.
So to me, I think what stands out is that we have been going back and forth all season about, last year Jaylen had the full first quarters. It seemed to really get him off to a good start most games, and he was one of the leading scorers in the NBA in the first. And obviously they really went away from that, and I don't think it's the only reason he struggled. I think sometimes you just struggle too. But I like the fact that Joe Mazzulla and the coaching staff are trying to find ways to kind of get him back in rhythm, and this seems like one of those tangible things. And there's a lot of things we don't know behind the scenes that they're doing, but this is one that is visible and that clearly I think is helping a little bit here. And so it stood out. He looked more comfortable and more in rhythm afterwards. And I think what also stood out to me is the fact that he's enjoying this challenge. I know everybody thinks Joe Mazzulla is crazy, and he's talking about how he's enjoying the adversity of losing games and things, but I actually think the players are embracing it all as well. At least Tatum and Brown, they've both been kind of pretty open about the fact that they're not overreacting to a couple weeks of inconsistent basketball. And I think Jaylen's comments post-game today, we hadn't heard from him in a while, but he seems to really be kind of embracing what the stretch has been.
Yeah, his mood there surprised me. I thought we'd see him more frustrated or at least somber, Jaylen. He seemed like he's in a good spirit coming out of this game, and maybe that's not where he was on other nights where we potentially could have heard from him. It's easy, I think, to feel great after a 40-point win, despite what's gone on the last handful of weeks here. And Jason talked about not skipping steps, trying to build habits toward the playoffs. I think that's something that they're starting to realize, all right, we do have to do that now if we want to get back to where we're going to go later. But obviously a lot of talk around this game from the Warriors that this stuff happens. There's some level of boredom coming off a championship, and they're going through that. I think that's one thing we know for sure. And then number two, we know for sure the rotations have been adjustment for both players. So we're starting to find a little of the real answer here of, all right, why are some things feeling off? And they're starting to solve it, which I think is a good thing here. And Jason said in his comments there that he and Jalen and Joe, they talk about that stuff going into games. So there is some level of communication about, all right, is this working for you? Is that working for you? And trying to figure out how to keep them both involved. But, we talked during the game. When they're both out there together, I think there can be some more connectivity between the two. It shouldn't just be, all right, get off the floor so this guy can do his thing, and then you get off the floor so the other guy can do his thing.
Yeah, I joked about it post-game, but I feel like a Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown pick and roll would just make everybody happy, even if it's not the most, the best play as far as exploiting mismatches or things like that. I think one of my takeaways just from, and I know this is the first of a 4-game road trip, and we're going to learn a lot more about this team in the next week, but just hearing from guys like Steve Kerr, from Steph Curry, that these kinds of lulls are expected in a championship season. I think that honestly, Celtics fans are pretty used to excellence because they haven't had a year coming off a championship before. It's just been heartbreak after heartbreak after heartbreak. And every one of those years they've come in, with really good regular season records. Even the years that we refer back to as like the not great years of 2023 or 2022, like they had great regular season records in those seasons. And so I think fans aren't used to seeing them come off a championship and some of the normal psychological things that come off of that. So hearing, Steve Kerr say, I would not be worried if I was a Celtics fan. Hearing, Steph Curry said after the game, they're 30-13. Like, what do people want? Obviously, those guys are just going to have their perspective, but they're people that have been through it, multiple times, and they understand this process a lot better than most of us.
Yeah, that made me feel better. This game made me feel better, too. If they came out and laid another stinker, it'd be like, all right, especially against a team that's missing Kuminga, Draymond Green in this one. It was a vulnerable team, but this is what you got to do when you go up against a team like that. And, of course, first win since 2022 here. So they've had struggles in this building, big ones, and they didn't struggle for a minute in this game.
Yeah, no, they really didn't. And I think part of it is Golden State. I felt like Golden State really didn't have much of a fight here, as we said. Like, sometimes you're going to just play against teams that are going to hit those open shots, and they were really not putting up much of a fight. But I do think from the beginning, the physicality, the ball movement to me is the number one thing that I look out for, because I do think it's the hallmark of what made this team so special last season. It's why opposing coaches have said, there aren't this many selfless teams in the NBA, and sometimes when the ball movement is bad, I don't think it's everybody's decided to be selfish, but there's a sense of rhythm, there's a sense of lack of trust that the right play is going to work out. And so it's good to have nights where the right play gets rewarded over and over and over again. Sam Hauser hit a couple threes, that was good to see. Pritchard maintained kind of a good rhythm, a good flow. I think they had 6 guys in double figures, so Drew, KP, Jalen, Tatum, and Hauser off the bench. So it's just good to see, even scoring throughout. And a lot of what we've been talking about in the last few weeks is individual players' slumps. And so as many of those slumps that can be resolved, the better.
Yeah, and Jalen mentioned that too, not just getting myself going, but getting all these different guys going, part of his mindset going forward here. And to your point, they were last in passes over the last 15 games coming into tonight. So a big difference here against Golden State, and a good start to the road trip for sure.
Last in passes is kind of wild. I honestly didn't realize that was the stat till today. In any case, that's it for us for here from Chase Center. A pretty dead Chase Center, I have to say. This was one of the less enthused crowds. They didn't have much to cheer for, but even early on, felt like there was not a lot of...
I think how their season's going. Their fans are on the edge. They're about to jump.
And we'll be heading to LA tomorrow, so you can follow along for more coverage from Clippers first, then Lakers.